Well, good morning. It's good to have you guys here. My name is Dave. I'm lead pastor at I-90. It's good to see you. We all want to be great, don't we? Whether your thing is inventions, when you're 8 years old, you thought you were going to create the next thingamajig that was going to rule the world, or you're the athletic type, or you're the business type, or you're the music type, or whatever. There's something inside of every one of us, regardless of what our outlet for it is, that says, I want to be great. And that's not wrong. If you've got that in you, and in fact, I'd venture to guess that every single one of us, because we're human beings, has that inside of us, that feeling, that desire to be known, to make a mark, to make a difference in this world, to leave something behind that'll impact other people, that desire to be great. If you have that in you, that's not bad, that's not prideful, that's not weird, that's not like, oh, tone it down. I think that's given to you from God. And we're going to start a series today called Something Greater, because we're all searching to be great. We all want to be great. We all want to leave that mark. We all want to make a difference. And we want to be great as a church. Not necessarily how the world would define greatness, not necessarily how maybe, church culture, as that sort of develops in our world in weird different ways and things like that, may define greatness, but how God would define greatness for us as a church. And I want all of you, and myself included, to be great as well. So we are going to start this series called Something Greater. In fact, I'll get into it in just a minute here, because I really think this is a defining series for us. I think it's one of those series that I've been praying that all of us would really have an open heart to and say, you know what? God has something for me here. God's trying to get my attention. God wants to speak into my heart this morning and for the next few mornings as the month of September plays out. So we'll jump into that here in just a minute. But what I want to do is give you a little update on some things that are happening, because September for us, you know how if you work for a big corporation or something, everyone's got their fiscal year, and this is when we start our new year and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes it lands on the typical January to December, but sometimes it doesn't for various reasons, right? As a church, and I don't know how other churches do it, but for us, we look at a new year starting when kids go back to school. Because if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of kids that go to school here, and it just makes sense. There's a lot of kids. Have you ever noticed that a lot of kids at I-90 go to school? That was a ridiculous statement. Have you ever noticed there's a lot of kids that go to church here? Goodness sakes. And there are, in case you haven't. There's a lot of kids here. And we set out to be a church. We knew God put it into our DNA to be a church that would always, always, always have as a first priority ministry to children. That's who we are. That's who we will always be. Doesn't mean for those of you who don't have kids, or you're getting on in years, you've got teens, or you don't have kids yet, or whatever. I mean, it's a church for everyone, of course, but we will always make sure we are serving and meeting the needs and loving on little ones, and that's just a big deal for us. So it just makes sense for our year to start when kids go back to school. And so this is the beginning of a new ministry for a year for us here at I-90. And what I do, and if you've been around here a couple years or even just last year, you know that usually around this time, I just like to take a few minutes to talk about what are the new things that are happening around here? What are the things that God has been sort of challenging us with and showing us that we need to change, we need to grow, we need to do this or that? Because we always just want to kind of have an open heart before Him and say, God, this is your deal. This is your church. We just get to be along for the ride. So show us, what do you want us to do? And so what I'm going to do is kind of hopefully rapid fire, not take too much time on this, but give you just a few quick updates or introductions or whatever it might be for some of the things that are going on around here that are already happening or that will be happening very soon this fall. So the first thing is, hopefully you saw there in your program or with your program, we've got a new program, by the way. I think you already saw that, but there's a catalog for our fall groups. And I'm not going to go through them all right now, all the groups that are in there. When we'll do that, we'll definitely highlight some of those groups in the coming weeks. But I want to point it out to you, because what we've tried to do, and we've just really, as a leadership team, believe God has been shifting our focus on this, is not make our goal with groups. And groups are just our opportunities outside of Sunday mornings for 8, 10, 12 weeks, somewhere in there, for a small group of us to get together and be able to connect better and learn together and grow together, which is hard to do on a Sunday morning, right? It's hard to get to know the backside of someone's head. I mean, it's just, we've got to do something outside of Sundays to really grow together and get to know each other. So that's why we do groups, and that's what that is, in case you're wondering. But we decided, let's take a different route with this. Because in the past, I'll just be honest with you, there's going to be a lot of true confessions kind of stuff here this morning. We just said, hey, let's find some people who would be willing to open up their home or meet with some people at a coffee shop or whatever, and just have groups. And that's great, because there's always connection that takes place. And that's a huge reason why we do it, right? Is to get connected and build friendships. But we haven't been too strategic about, well, what do we really need to offer to you guys when we do those, right? Should it just be random free-for-all, or do we want to become a little bit more strategic with that? And we decided, you know what? We think God is telling us you need to be more strategic. You need to do things and offer things to the church that make sense for where they're at. And so some of you, I'm assuming in this room, were asked to fill out a survey back in late spring. I think it was early summer. Amy Bruce, our Next Steps director, sent it out to a big group of people and basically said, what are you looking for? In this season of life, what do you need to help you grow and to help you build friendships and to help you get through this season and this difficulty or grow spiritually, all those different things. And we got a lot of good feedback. And the two things that came to the top of the list by far were parenting. Shocker, right? I need help with parenting. Yeah, I could use encouragement with parenting. Yeah, I'd love some tips with parenting. That's always probably going to be part of the deal around here. So that was a huge thing we heard back from people. And the other one was just building a better biblical understanding for your life. Just understanding the Bible and the foundational stuff about Christianity that's in there. And again, obviously that's part of Sunday mornings, but where you're just in a small group environment and you're being able to ask questions and you're learning good material and you're hearing just directly, what does the Bible say about this? And how does the Bible answer this question? And I have doubts about this and on and on and on. That's just what a lot of you said, that's what I'm looking for. So, and there's a lot of different things in your catalog there. I'm not saying it's all going to fall into those two categories, but you will see in there specifically things geared towards you as a parent if you're in that season of life. And we have a new group, we've never done this before, called Alpha. Now, Alpha is a worldwide organization, and it's been going for years now, but it is excellent, and it's very good material to help you and I understand better what the faith is all about, what the Bible teaches on core foundational principles of Christianity, and it is really super exciting. I've asked two good friends of mine, two mentors of mine, Larry Brown and Monty Chellis, to lead that for us here at I-90, and that's going to start here in a few weeks. And if that's where you're at, it's going to be on Sunday nights up at the High Point campus. I just want to learn more, hear more, understand better what the Bible is all about, what it says about faith, what it really means to be a Christian and what the gospel is and all that kind of stuff. That group is for you. It's also for you if you have a friend who's asking those questions and wants to be in that type of environment. And you're going to invite them to come with you to go to it. It's going to be really cool. If you've never heard of Alpha, I want to show you just a very quick video just to kind of whet your appetite a little bit. So you can sign up on your connection card throughout the month of September. You can sign up online. Of course, there's all kinds of other opportunities as well. We got parenting focused groups. Financial Peace University is going to be offered again this fall. If you have never gone through that, I will beg you once again to please go through Financial Peace University. Every adult needs to go through that. So that's in there. That's also taking place on Sunday nights. We've got a handful of Bible studies that are taking place, all kinds of great things. As well as, and I think Stacy probably pointed out, there will always be a list of kind of like one-time events on your program. Every week you'll see a little list there that just says, oh wow, there's a dinner fellowship thing happening at this person's house in a couple weeks, or there's a play date happening here, or this team's going out to serve in the local community. Whatever. So there's always the kind of the one-time things on your program, but here in that catalog, those are the things coming up for the fall for 8, 10, 12 weeks where you're going to make a commitment. Yeah, I'm going to hang with this group of people, go through this material. Alpha would certainly be a great choice for you. Okay, so we just wanted to hit that real quick. Let me tell you a few things about youth. For those of you who are youth inclined, I mean in terms of you have youth in your household. I'm always going to be youth inclined, but it doesn't mean I have teenagers, so I said that poorly. What's going on with our youth essentially is they're growing. It's funny, 5th graders become 6th graders every year, which is, that just keeps happening. So we get youth that way, but they're also bringing their friends, and the group is just, frankly, it's just growing, which is awesome, but it provides some interesting logistics we have to deal with. So we have asked the landlord of this building, and obviously eventually we're going to be at High Point, and the youth will have their own space up there and whatnot, but we've asked the landlord of this building to let us use one of their vacant spaces, which is right next to Kids Bounce. The whole space is bigger than this gym, and they said, okay, sure. The conversation was a little more complicated than that, but basically they said you can use it, and it ended up being for free, which is amazing. So our teenagers now on Sunday mornings have this gigantic space, which actually scares me a little bit. But they've got this huge space to call their own on Sunday mornings, which is really cool. It's just a couple of warehouses down. You'll see the sign out there in front. For now, still just at the second service. Eventually, we might do some things in both services. The other thing we'll probably start doing with our youth on Sunday mornings, and as well as on Tuesday nights up at High Point, is start to break up middle schoolers and high schoolers. That's going to be another key thing we start to do. It's just part of the maturation process of a church. You get to those little stepping stones, and we're at the place where we realize, wow, there's enough kids, and we got enough leaders, and that sixth grader who's scared to death about their first day in middle school can't really hang too well with the junior that's thinking about college right now. So we're starting to figure that out and put those things together. It's going to take a little time, right? Be praying for Pastor Chris. He's doing a phenomenal job, but there's just a lot of growing pains, things we got to work through there. So just kind of be in the know on that. I-90 Kids is I-90 Kids. That team is doing awesome as always. What I wanted to do today, though, is just make sure you knew you had a name at least to put with each area of our children's ministry here at the church, okay? Because that team, it changes sometimes. A lot of those names are still the same as they've been, but the team has fluctuated a little bit. And these are the people that are kind of running each area, mostly as volunteers, but they're pouring their lives into this thing week in and week out. And you just need to know who they are. Whenever I ask these women, hey, can I get a picture to throw up on the thing? They say, no, you can't put a picture of me up on the screen. So there's no picture. But if you've got kids in their area, you probably know who they are. But Crystal Garvin is our nursery team lead. Amber Clinton's our kindergarten preschool team lead. My wife recently stepped into the role that Shay Harris was doing wonderfully for a couple years for us as the elementary team lead. And then Melissa Bowers is currently our administrative support and scheduling person for that team. This is the only reason I'm bringing this up, because I thought this was a great Sunday to do this. If you see one of these people, if you know who they are, you need to tell them thank you. In all seriousness, you just need, especially if you have kids in one of their areas, you need to look them in the eye and say, thank you very much. Because again, I'm not exaggerating. These women pour hours and hours for the most part as volunteers to serve our children and to love them towards Jesus and put on what I think is a phenomenal children's program here for a church. So tell these women thank you. That's all I want to say on that. A couple new things that I just want to highlight that are going on. You probably, again, new program. If you loved it, let us know. If you didn't, I don't want to hear about it. So I'm kidding. You can always give us any feedback you want. We've got a new program for you there. Perforation is just a cool word, so enjoy the perforated part of that now. I just think that's really cool that we get to tear something now on Sunday morning, so that's on there. A new website is coming up, so be on the lookout for that. It's not up yet, but in the coming weeks, you'll see a new website design. We're going to start communicating with you better through social media. That's just never been a focus of ours, but we realize that's something we need to change and put the effort into. So through Facebook and Twitter and all those good things, you will start to hear from I-90 and interact with I-90 through those things, so be looking for that as well. So those are just some new things that are happening. Finally, before we start this series, I want to talk about High Point, because this has been an incredible journey that we've been on. In fact, about a year ago today, almost exactly, we launched a giving campaign. Many of you are familiar with it, the Our Next Step giving campaign, to raise money to start that whole process of being able to build our new campus up at High Point. In case you're totally, either A, you're not familiar with what's going on there, or B, you just really haven't understood what's going on there, which would be fine. I would understand if you didn't understand. I can't even say it, it's so complicated. Here's basically what we've been up to this past year. We had to do something that most building projects around here don't have to do, and that is get a temporary, or not temporary, but basically get an exception for a zoning law to build our church up there. Because that area, if you've ever been up to High Point, it's all residential. It's all zoned residential. Now, the church that had been there for over 100 years existed before King County even existed, so they just kind of always got grandfathered in. We came along and said, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to quadruple the size of this and tear down a bunch of trees. And well, they said, time out, this is zoned residential. You need to get a conditional use permit to do that. Conditional use permits require a lot of work, and that is what we've been doing this past year. And what we didn't want to do is spend the church's money, essentially the money that it's ultimately God's money, but the money you in good faith and with generous hearts gave to the church as part of that campaign. And guys, within 4 months, we had raised over like $150,000. You guys stepped up huge and gave huge, and it was awesome. What we didn't want to do was spend that money without knowing for sure we'd be able to get the conditional use permit, because there's no guarantees. And so what we did was spend this last year making sure we had every T crossed and every I dotted. We finally have all of that in place. So we are now officially submitting for that conditional use permit. And again, you have to write a big old check when you do that, so we've been taking our time because again, we want to be good stewards of the money that's come into this place. So with that though, now an official timeline gets started. And what I wanted to do is just kind of walk you through the timeline of what that looks like as we are now submitting for that permit. The county has 28 days to confirm/accept that it came in, all right? So that's sort of a, hey, we got it, hey, it looks okay, hey, and again, we spent this whole last year making sure it would look okay. So hopefully we're in the clear there, but you need to keep praying through this whole process. So the county has 28 days to confirm/accept, then public notice goes out within 2 weeks after that confirmation. People will just be made known, hey, I-90 Community Church wants to expand their building up here at High Point. Here's the details, blah, blah, blah. Then once that happens, we have 10 days to post a sign. If you've ever driven around King County and seen one of those white signs that say land action or proposed land action use or whatever, we'll have one of those signs up in front of High Point here, hopefully pretty soon. And then there's a 24-day, at a minimum, comment period. So that's when people living on that road, people in the general area can say, I'm not sure I like this, or I have questions, or whatever. It's kind of cool because like most of the people that live on that road go to church here, so that's pretty sweet. But so that works out well for us. But again, we got to keep praying through all this. No, there's no guarantees. And then there will be a final meeting with the county after that comment period ends, and then a final decision mailed to us within 2 months of the comment period ending. So that's the timeline. We felt comfortable now to put that in front of you because we're moving forward with actually submitting that application. So still got a road ahead of us for sure, but we're moving in that direction. I wanted to give you an update on that. But don't think that that location is not being used. It is being used now probably more than it's been used in quite a few years, which is really exciting. In fact, all the people that merged into us from Trinity Evangelical Church, now part of I-90 Church, have told me on many occasions, it's so great to see so many things happening in this building again. I want to show you a picture of what? Do we have that picture there, guys? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, let's do this first. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is just in case you haven't looked at our drawings in the back. This just reminds you what essentially it will look like. There's the main auditorium for adults down on the right there. This is the bottom floor. And then over to the left, you see the large group area for preschool, then a bunch of nursery and preschool classrooms. And then the second story is the elementary space, the youth space, some more bathrooms, a little office area, that kind of thing. So that's essentially what it looks like. Those drawings will always be up here in the church on a Sunday morning. You can take a look at them. What we've been doing lately, though, because we want to use this place right now, it's an incredible blessing to have a place that's ours for 24/7 during the week. And so we remodeled one end of it to be sort of a Starbucksy type lounge. Staff members can go there and work. We can have meetings there. A lot of the groups that you see in your catalog for the fall session of groups will be meeting up there. The youth get to use this space on Tuesday nights. It's just a real blessing. So we want to start getting it, usable for our needs. So we got a couple shots there of what that looks like right now. And when you're up there today for the chili cook-off, just peek in there. We're doing it outside for obvious reasons, but peek in the building without your chili, and you can take a look. I don't care if you bring in your chili. I'm just joking. So that is that. Is there anything else I want to say about that? Oh, and then also part of the deal, and some of you already know this, is that we own 3 houses on that property right now, one of which I wouldn't send my worst enemy to go spend any time in, but 2 that are in good condition for living, and they are being used as homes for 2 of our staff families, which is a huge blessing too. So a lot of things are happening up there that are really, really cool. But what I want you to know is we're at that point now where we're submitting, moving forward, so really, really cool stuff there. Okay. Let's talk about our new series. And again, I appreciate you hanging in there with that for me. If you got any other questions about High Point and all that kind of stuff, feel free to come grab me at any time. Or one of our other leaders around here knows what's going on with it too. But we want to start talking today about something greater. Because I'm going to, again, kind of true confessions. I'm going to be real with you this morning, as I always try to be, and let you know this past year with the whole High Point thing consumed a lot of my focus. Not necessarily a ton of my time, because we have a great team of people kind of doing the actual work of it. I haven't, they've kind of said, Dave, you're just going to goof things up. So you just go do your pastor thing. Let us take care of this. And again, thank the Lord we've got people like that who are really smart and know what to do from the law side of things and the real estate side of things and the construction, side of things. But it was still very consuming for me. In fact, it was very hard for me to go throughout the year and not spend the majority of my thought time, right, when I wasn't thinking about my family and my own relationship with God, to not be thinking about the High Point Project, to not be thinking about where we're heading and all the things that need to be done and all the kind of stuff. And frankly, it started to wear on me a little bit. And probably about early spring, as I was just trying to put my focus back more on God and not have this thing be, such a burden that I felt like I was carrying on my shoulders, I started to hear God's voice. And it wasn't a loudspeaker audible from heaven, kind of thing. Again, you've heard me say this before. I'd love for that to happen sometime. I mean, how cool would that be? But it wasn't that. But I know God was talking to me. And he was starting to remind me about what the mission of this church really is. He was saying, Dave, you know what? You're getting so worked up about this thing. You're spending so much mental energy on this whole High Point thing. And it's not even what I ever told you was the mission of this church. It's not even, I've never said that this is like the end all be all. This is why we started the church, is to someday have our own building, to someday be in a place that we can call our home 24/7. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a huge blessing. But that's not why. That's not the mission. And guys, it will be incredible. I really want you to know that. I mean, when we get up there, this gym has been a blessing, don't get me wrong, but it's a gym. And we have to use it as a gym Monday through Saturday to pay the bills, all right? So it's got its drawbacks. Kids Bounce, as wonderful as that been, and I'm so glad we started our church in a bouncy house. So people could say, that's the bouncy house church. I thought that was really cool for a long time. It's not as cool anymore, but it was cool when we first started. It's been such a blessing, right? But we have no control over that space. We have very little flexibility in there. Yeah, bouncy house is cool, woo! It's very limiting for our children's team to actually operate out of Kids Bounce. Again, it's great, it's awesome, it's been a blessing. And sometimes people say, well, gosh, when you get up to High Point, what are you going to do? My kids love Kids Bounce. That's how you get the kids in here, right? Whenever I hear that question, I say the same thing over and over and over again. It will be 10 times better, guaranteed. Stamp it, I can tell you right now. Your kids will love it more, it'll be better for the church, guaranteed. Because we'll do all the cool stuff up there, don't get me wrong. And, if it's maybe we'll hang the bouncy houses from the ceiling up there, I don't know. We'll do something that'll be even better than Kids Bounce. But in addition to that, more importantly than that, the same leaders and volunteers who are doing a phenomenal job leading our kids into a relationship with Jesus will be up there. And they'll get to use that space however they want to use it, all week long, 24/7. It's theirs. So that's gonna be incredible, right? So don't get me wrong when I say this isn't the mission, because it'll be really, really awesome to move up there. And it'll be very transformational, I think, for us as a church. But God kept reminding me this spring. God kept bringing me back to, you know what, this isn't why I had you start this church, Dave. This isn't why I blessed you with these incredible people to come around you and help get this thing going 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it's been now. That wasn't the goal. That wasn't the mission. Our mission is about something much, much greater. Jesus once had a conversation, an interaction with his followers where a situation arose, and I don't know if he saw it coming. I mean, I guess Jesus sees everything coming because he's Jesus, but it seemed fairly random, and he had to respond to it. But essentially, it gave him an opportunity to define greatness for his followers. Now, I just want to read the story to you. You'll see it's in Mark chapter 10 if you've got a Bible, if you want to look, but it's on the screen here above me. It says, then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. James and John were 2 of his closest disciples, 2 of his closest friends. Walked with him through ministry, been right by his side, seen some amazing things. And then one day they approached Jesus. They say, teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. You know, as a teacher or as a parent or someone in charge of kind of like pupils or disciples or students or whatever, have you ever gotten that, right? Sometimes it happens from my kids where they just say, hey, Dad, I really want you to do something for me. And part of the time, sometimes as a parent, you're like, okay, that's a little rude or that's kind of brash or whatever, and I know for me, I got to sort of wade through my emotions when my kids talk to me that way. Hey, I want you to do something for me. Now, we don't know. Maybe they said it gently. Maybe they said it just kind of subtly. But the bottom line is they made a pretty bold statement to Jesus. And Jesus, being Jesus, doesn't rip their head off. Doesn't fly off in a rage and say, well, how dare you, talk to me that way. No, he just says, well, what do you want me to do for you? He just okay, you tell me. You want me to do something for you? What is it you want me to do? They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Now, I'm not sure they really knew what they meant by saying that, but what they did know, or at least what they expected, was that Jesus was eventually going to be the guy. He was going to become the king. His disciples already thought to some degree, yeah, I think he's the right guy. That's why they were following him. But there was this sense, there was this teaching, there was this kind of foreshadowing that Jesus would eventually be the king of everything. He would be the guy. He'd be the president. He'd be the prime minister. He'd be the one in charge. He'd be the one that everyone else, looked to and followed. And they said, basically what they're saying is, Jesus, when that happens, we want to be right by your side, right? We want to be the Speaker of the House and the Vice President, right? In the press shots where they're in the back, Joe Biden's like, yeah, good job, Obama, whatever. I mean, we want to be one of those guys. In other words, we want to be great too. We know you're destined for greatness, Jesus. We know you're already great. We know eventually you're going to be, at least you're already here, but you're going to now be seen by the world at some point as the greatest. We want to be right there with you when that happens. We want to be great too. And so Jesus responds to them. He knows what they're getting at. I don't think you really know what you're asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? And they say, yes, we can. In other words, Jesus is saying, okay, great. I understand you want to be great. I know that. I was the one who created you to want to be great. But it's not going to be that easy. It's not going to be as simple as just saying, hey, well, just come along. Just stand right by me. You take the podium behind you. You get in the shot on CNN or what. It just doesn't happen that way. That's actually not what greatness even is. And I'm going to go through some things, Jesus says, they're going to be really hard. I'm going to go through some things where I'm going to have to do things that aren't comfortable. I'm going to have to go through some things that no one else on this planet would be willing to go through. But it will lead to true greatness. And if you want to be great too, you're going to have to do the same thing. You're going to have to come with me. In fact, when he says, can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with, he's asking them, do you really think you can go through what I'm going to go through? I know you don't even understand yet what that's going to look like, but are you sure? And they say, yes, we can. And then here's Jesus' response. You will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. He says, you're right. You know what? I'm helping you understand. I'm kind of playing with you a little bit, but here's the thing. You are destined for greatness. And if you stick with me, if you follow me, if you do things my way, you will be great as well. Now, the whole idea about when I sit on my throne someday and I'm truly the king of the world and everyone sees me as the king of the world, that's up to God, to who gets to experience that with me in that way. Now, Jesus is God in the flesh, of course, but also there's this delineation mysteriously in the Trinity of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And Jesus as God the Son is saying, that's not for me to decide. That's God the Father. But yes, you will be great. You will be able to drink the cup I drink. You will be baptized with the baptism I'm about to go through. So yes, I'll give you what you want. That desire to be great, that longing to be great, that longing to be known and make a difference and leave your mark on the world, that can happen if you do it my way, if you stick with me. And then, of course, got to have some drama, right? So the other disciples hear about this. And I don't know if they were like right there kind of hearing the conversation or one person heard and went and told them, or maybe James and John came back and said, hey guys, let me tell you this conversation we had with Jesus. It was pretty remarkable. Who knows? But when the 10 heard about this, the other 10 disciples, they became indignant with James and John. And of course they would. Because they thought James and John, and maybe James and John were originally thinking this themselves anyway, they thought what they were trying to do was get the seat of power with Jesus. Get in that place where they've got that authority. Get to be the ones that point the finger and call the shots and make all the rules. And they got pretty ticked about that. And you would too. How dare you go to Jesus and ask for something like that? That's crazy. How selfish, how whatever, right? Pretty human response, pretty natural response. And so Jesus kind of says, time out. Family meeting, right? You ever done that with your kids? My daughter the other night we were laying in bed and she was asking me some questions before I put her to sleep. And she's like, Dad, why every once in a while you just say family meeting? And I tried to explain to her, well, sometimes, honey, we're not all on the same page. Sometimes you and your brother are fighting about something. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding. And you know what? We're not going to be the family that has divisions and has this and we take sides over here. And that's not how this kingdom runs. So we have family meetings where we all get in the same room and look each other in the eyes and say, what's going on here? Let's make this right. Let's figure this out. That's how a family should operate. And so we have family meetings. Jesus is saying to them, family meeting. You guys are grumbling over here. I had this kind of wacky conversation with James and John over here. They don't even really know what they were asking to begin with, but let's just all talk about this together. And this is what he says. You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. In other words, you know what the world says about greatness. You know the world says that in order to be great, you need to be the one calling the shots. You need to be the one that's on the stage. You need to be the one that gets to make all the rules and point the finger and tell people to shut up and get in line. And that's how the world works. But that's not true greatness. You guys are upset with James and John because they asked to be next to me in my glory, thinking they had a bad motivation, and maybe they did. But that's not what true greatness is. Don't think the way the world does something. Don't think the way the world sees something is really what is true. And now he's going to define what true greatness is. He says that's how the world does it, but not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great, and they all did, and all of us do, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man, referring to himself, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus didn't get upset when James and John said, we want you to do something for us. Because he knew in their heart of hearts, they were expressing to him, we want to be great. We know you're great, Jesus. We want to be great too. Something inside of each of us longs to be known, to do something significant with our lives, to make a real difference in the world. Jesus knows this. He's the one who put that inside of us. But he wants to make sure we understand what true greatness is. Because we could chase after a lot of things thinking that's what will make us great, and we'll always come up empty. We'll do all the things that the world says that will make you great. And at the end of our lives say, I wasn't great. I don't feel like I made a difference. I don't think like my life really mattered. Jesus says you have to understand what true greatness is. And that's why I think we have something greater for you in this new year as a church than even getting to eventually move into a new, cool, clean, nice paint job on the outside church building. Because our mission isn't ultimately about having a nicer building or growing a budget or even bouncy houses. It's to help people know and become like Jesus Christ. That's what God was trying to bring me back to this past year and say, wow, you've gotten so consumed with this High Point thing in the building and all that kind of stuff. That's not the mission I gave you. Yeah, it's a great blessing I'm giving to you, but stay focused on the number one thing. Stay focused on the mission that I laid out for you. It's to help people know and become like Jesus. And that's what God kept bringing me back to this past year as I allowed myself to get consumed with this High Point project. He said, Dave, what's the mission? Why'd you start this church? See, whether in a gym or at High Point or in a school or out in a field, the mission doesn't change. And the mission isn't even hindered by what type of environment you're in. Because the mission is to help people know and become like Jesus. See, the mission ultimately, just to clarify, make sure we're on the same page with this, isn't even about getting more people through these doors and into the seats. Now, we want to reach as many people as possible. We want to share the love of God with as many people as possible. We want as many people as possible to hear, and there's lots of great churches all around this area where they're getting an opportunity to hear as well. We're just one part of a much bigger picture, but we want to have as many people come in here and see Jesus as possible, absolutely, but that's ultimately not the mission either. Our mission is to help people know and become like Jesus. Because that's when our desire, that's when this longing in us to be great will finally be fulfilled. That's when we'll say, wow, yeah, I'm great. Not in a prideful, no, I'm great because I'm where Jesus is. I'm doing it his way when we become like him. Listen to Jesus' words one more time. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man, Jesus himself, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. True greatness in this world is only found in becoming like Jesus. And Jesus himself said the ultimate expression of becoming like me is living a life of service to others. That's true greatness. That's what it means. So we decided, what was the best thing we could do as a church this year? What's the greatest thing we could challenge one another with at I-90 Community Church this year? To serve like we've never served before. To love each other, to reach out to each other, to lay down our lives for each other like never before. That's the pinnacle of spiritual growth. That's the essence of the Christian life. You could memorize your Bible 10 times over. You could give more money than everyone. You could build big buildings. You could be as religious as you want to be and know all the customs and all the traditions, on and on and on and on. And if you and I never lay down our lives for each other, little, big, in-between ways, we've missed it. So the question is, will we accept the challenge to be great? Will we take the next step in our serving this year, whatever that may be? And it's probably going to look different for all of us. But will we do that? Will we ask God, what's my next step? Last year we said our next step as a church was to build this new campus. And I think as a church it still is. We're still moving on that. We're still going in that direction. But as individuals, what's our next step in this new year of ministry? It's to serve. It's to serve maybe in a new way. Maybe it's to stay the course. Maybe it's to serve for the first time. But will you and I accept the challenge to be great? There's a little card that you got, hopefully when you came in. It was attached with the pen to your new program. And the front simply says, Something Greater Serving Challenge. And these will be available throughout the month of September. They'll always be on the tables or with your program or something if you lose it or you need another one or whatnot. But I'm going to ask all of you to take this. Now, if you're just like right now, like, yeah, man, God was already preparing me for this. I'm stoked. I'm ready. I know you're going to check a box and put it in the offering bucket. Great. Most of you, I'm assuming, will take this home and look over these lists of it being interested in serving in the church, in the community, around the world, and say, God, what's my next step this year? For some of you, it will be to start serving each other here on Sundays. Once a month, every other week, every week, I don't know, but getting on a team and serving each other. For some of you, the next step is going to be to get out in the community this year and take Jesus seriously when he said, you go and serve, you go and love the least of these among you. And we're going to have teams going out to the Issaquah Food Bank, to Mount Sinai Transitional Health, to getting more volunteers for Young Life, which we partner with, Vine Maple Place, so the homeless transitional ministry that we work with. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. That's going to be the next step for some of you. Some of you, the next step, and if you already know this is eating at you, you already know that God's saying something about this, please don't ignore it. You need to start wrestling with this right now. Some of you need to get on a plane this year and fly to a different part of the world and serve people you've never met and give a week of your life where you just pour yourself out and you spend the money and you budget it and you figure it out and you take the week off of work and you serve people like Jesus has told you to go serve. We'll send 2 teams to Honduras this year and 1 to Ecuador over the next year's time. It's a lot of seats on planes that we need to fill. But I know God has all those seats filled already. We just have to respond. So I don't know what it's going to be for you. But start praying. Start saying, God, I want to take the challenge. I accept it. I'm going to go. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. Maybe it's here at church. Maybe it's out in the community. Maybe it's around the world. I don't know. All that matters is that you and I obey. Because if you want to be great, that's what it will take. I want to share this with you really quick. I know we're getting close on time, but my family loves to listen to radio theater, right? And I always hesitate saying that because people are like, you were born in the 50s and but we love these audio presentations where instead of sitting around a TV, you're just listening to it together. And there's something really, the well-produced ones, there's something really special about it. And we just got done with this, I'm sorry about the 1950s things, by the way. I just meant like you're stuck in the past. That's all I meant when I said that. If you were born in the 1950s, you're awesome. Geez. Jim Gaffigan tells this joke where he's like, what did people do before TV? And you remember the pictures where people are all around the radio, looking at the radio, and they all look like they have smiles on their faces? And Jim Gaffigan loves to say, well, that's just because they're anticipating the day that TV will finally be invented. I wish I could see. No, we like to listen. We just try to listen as a family to stuff, and we're driving around the car and whatnot. So anyway, we just listened to this incredible, it's not for little kids, I'm just going to warn you, but this incredible radio theater thing called Under Drake's Flag, and it was about Sir Francis Drake, who was one of the European explorers back in the 1500s. And he was a Christian. And he, in 1577, he recorded this prayer that he prayed, but he wrote it down, and I don't know, for prosperity or whatever, but he recorded this prayer, and I got to be honest with you, it kind of messed with me a little bit, in a good way. And I thought, we just literally finished listening to this like a week ago. I said, God, I think you had me listen to this at just this time, because I think everyone needs to hear this prayer. And I'm just going to read it to you as we close today. So this was Sir Francis Drake back in 1577. He says, disturb us, Lord, when we are too pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we dreamed too little, when we arrived safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, when with the abundance of things we possess, we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity. In our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision of the new heaven to dim. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wilder seas, where storms will show your mastery, where losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes and to push back the future in strength, courage, hope, and love. This we ask in the name of our captain, who is Jesus Christ. I hope you'll start praying a prayer like that. I'm starting to pray a prayer like that. God wants us to be great. Not just as a church, but as individuals, as families, as couples. He wants you to be great. And being great is found in being like him. Jesus, thanks for your love. And thanks, God, for challenging us to be great. God, it makes sense when we think about it. Since we were little kids, we had dreams and aspirations and hopes about being known in this world and doing great things. God, may we understand that true greatness is found in being like you. God, that whatever gifts and skills that you've given us, God, and there's such a wonderful, beautiful diversity of those in a church like ours, God, help us to understand that ultimately they are to be used to serve others. So God, I don't know what the next step is for every person here, but help us to know what it is. Help us to stand up and say, yeah, God, I accept the challenge. I want to do something greater this year. I want to take the next step in my serving. So God, give us the courage to be real about that. Give us the courage to stand up. Give us the courage to follow through. God, and may this be a church that continues to open its doors with wide open arms, saying to everyone, this is a church for you. Come in here, see Jesus, know his love and goodness for your life. And God, as a result, I pray you would change lives dramatically in this next year of ministry. We pray it all in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Guys, thanks for being here for our fall kickoff. We'll see you up at High Point.